Unit 1, Lesson 6, Where Do I Stand, Part 1. Today we're going to be talking about the IQR, outlier formula, and box plots. Okay, today our lab includes Where Do I Stand, and what it does is it has you, how does your height compare with all the other AP Stats students in my class? So in order to answer this question, what we did is we took a student in the 4th period of AP Stats and recorded the heights of everyone in her class. And here are the heights. So what I went ahead and did is put that in my calculator. So if you guys could go ahead and record that in the calculator, and remember how you do that is you're going to go ahead from the home page, you're going to hit New Document, List and Spreadsheets, and you're going to come up here, and you're going to want to label the top. So I put all the data in here. And at the top, you're going to want to make sure you put some sort of label. And I'm just going to label mine heights, period 4. Okay. So it's ready to go. And it says make a dot plot. You guys can make a dot plot on here because it's already pretty easy to do so, but I'm just going to go ahead and do a dot plot on the calculator as well. So in order to do that, Control Doc, which for mine it's a little different, but Control Doc on your calculator, then Data Statistics. You're going to hover over the x-axis and go to heights, period 4. And there's your dot plot. Okay, go ahead and copy the dot plot and ask for the median. Now the median, of course, you can go ahead and do that part from counting the middle, or let's go ahead and do a menu 411. So make sure you touch off of the list, otherwise it won't get you the correct, or it won't calculate the data for you. And then we're going to find a one variable statistics. So menu, statistics, which is 4, 1 is stat calc, and 1 is one variable statistics. Okay. And the X list is heights, period 4. Okay. And there we go. My median is 63. So my median is 63. And it says what's Q1 and Q3? Well, Q1 and Q3, on here it says 61.5 and Q3 is 68. But I also want to show you how to do this by hand. So go ahead and come over to this list and go ahead and go all the way to the top. Go all the way up until it highlights. And we're going to sort the list. So you're going to sort it by hitting Menu, Actions, Sort. Okay. Okay, so I went ahead. Oh, mine did not sort. Okay, I'm going to try one more time. Menu, Sort. And, oh, Range, I got A, ascending, go. Oh, there we go. Okay, it's sorted. There we go. It's sorted. I guess it's sorted before. Okay, so my median, obviously, I have 21 numbers. And the way I like to do it is I like to say, I'm going to take the median out. So in order to compensate for me taking it out of the data, I'm going to add 1 to the data and divide by 2. And that tells me my median. So 21 plus 1 is 22, divided by 2 is 11, and that's my 11th piece of data. So I'm just gonna, for our purposes, I'm just gonna go ahead and make it a different color. So that's my median. Okay, so now I'm gonna take that out of the data, and now I only have 10 pieces of data on the bottom, and I have 10 pieces of data on the top, because the median is that center number. So for the 10 pieces of data on the bottom, I'm going to do the same thing. I have 10 pieces of data, plus 1, 11, divided by 2 is 5.5. So that means that my median is between these two numbers. So again, for our purposes, I'm going to make it green. And 61 plus 62 divided by 2 is 61.5. So that is my Q1, and you can see that that's my Q1. We're gonna do the same thing for here. So again, I have 10 pieces of data up here. 10 plus 1 divided by 2 is going to be 5.5 again. So I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's between 68 and 68 because that's my 5th and 6th piece of data. I'm going to again color it. And you can see that that is indeed my Q3. Okay. So, that's the first thing it wants you to recognize. And then we're going to do what is called a box plot. You're going to record, this is what's called our 5-number summary. So you're going to record the minimum, the Q1, the median, the Q3, and the maximum. And you can see the 5-number summary is always located on those bottom 5 numbers for you on your menu 411 right there, which is really handy. Let's make them pink so we can see them. So that is my 5-number summary. And we're gonna make a box plot. I'm gonna have you do it by hand, and then I'm gonna show you how to do it on the calculator. So you can see I did it by hand, and I have a dot at the bottom. Then I have a line making my box on Q1, a line in the center of the box on my median, and the line at the end of the box on my Q3. Now, this, as you can see, is labeled IQR because the IQR is my Q3, 66.5, minus my Q1, minus my Q1 of 61.5. So 66.5 minus 61.5 is 5, and that is my IQR. Then, I should have continued, and then, so I'm gonna continue and do the maximum, and that's gonna be a dot at the end. All right, before I go ahead, apologize, 77 is the dot at the end. However, you can see that the dot stops at 72 and not at 77, and I have that as an asterisk, and I'm gonna actually explain that right now if I went ahead and did that. If you graphed it with the dot at 77, had a big long line, you're gonna see a huge tail on the right and not a huge tail on the left, so you're gonna see that 77 appears to be an outlier. But what I'm gonna do right now is show you the formula that allows you to determine if you have an outlier. Okay, an outlier is determined by this formula. If your data is way too small, then it's going to be less than Q1 minus 1.5 times your IQR. If your data is way too big, it's going to be bigger than Q3 plus 1.5 times IQR. So I went ahead and did the math, and you see 54. And so I look here and I say, okay, we have, my minimum is 57, and we're saying if there's any value lower than 54, that is an outlier. And clearly no data is less than 54, so I don't have an outlier. But let's look if I have an upper outlier, a high outlier. So I do my math and I get 74, and if any value above 74, that's an outlier. And I look at my data and I see, okay, I do have one value above 74. Look at my original data when I sorted it, because 74 right here, 77 is going to be an outlier because it is above, it's above 74. So that's above 74. And I see that 74, oh, it doesn't like me to do that. Let's see if I can trick it and put my quotations. Yeah, that's what I would need to do. So since it's above 74, I know that 74 was computed as an outlier. There we go. And therefore 77 is an outlier. So the way you represent this on a box plot is my minimum. So the first step, what I do is I make what's called my fences, and my fences are 54 and 74. All the data on my box plot has to lie between 54 and 74. If it does not, I'm going to put an asterisk, which is represented as an outlier. So when I graph the box plot, first step, minimum 57. It's above 54, so I can make the dot. Then they go ahead and do my Q1 line, my median line, my Q3 line, and connect the rectangle in the center. Then I go ahead and I say, oh, 74 is where my fence is. And so since 77 is above that, I'm going to take my next highest dot that is not an outlier and make that at the end of the box. Then I'm going to make asterisks for any of my outliers. All right, let's go ahead and I'm going to show you how to do this on the calculator. So the first step you're going to do is make a dot plot. We already did that, but I'm going to go ahead and do it again. So we're going to go Control Doc, Data Statistics, Hover, Heights Period 4. Then you're going to go ahead and hit Menu, Plot Type, Box Plot. And there's your box plot. Now, notice this box plot, and I don't know why, honestly, did not show up as an outlier, because on your calculator, it should show up as an outlier. It always shows up as an outlier automatically and should have already had a line with an asterisk. So I am a little confused why mine didn't show up as an outlier. but it should have shown up as an outlier for you. And it will automatically put that outlier in there for you when you do your box plot. So it says, how tall does the height have to compare with other AP statistics in your class? So how tall are you? And put your height here and see where you are as far as compared to other AP Stat students. So the important ideas that you needed to learn today is learning target number 1 is outliers. We're going to use the 1.5 IQR rule. A low outlier is below the fence, and each of these are called fences. And a low outlier is below the fence Q1 minus 1.5 times IQR, and a high outlier is above anything of Q3 plus 1.5 IQR. In order to make a box plot, you need to use the 5-number summary, the minimum, the Q1, the median, the Q3, and maximum. First step, put your fences that you learned from the outliers. Then if all of your values are within the fences, you can go ahead and make a box plot. If the minimum is below the fence, you're going to put the outlier as an asterisk, and you're going to put the next lowest value that is not an outlier as your minimum. Same thing with the outlier for the maximum if there is one. So for learning target number 3, to compare the distributions, you're going to use CUS and BS, but when you compare them, you're going to make sure you use comparative language. So remember CUS and BS, C stands for center. You use the mean when it's symmetric, use the median if it's skewed or has an outlier. You use U as unusual features, which is your outliers or your gaps. And so we have a rule. So now you're going to use the 1.5 IQR rule as a guideline. S stands for shape. You're going to see if what way it's shaped. It's either shaped skewed to the right, or it's going to be fairly symmetric, skewed to the right, skewed to the left, or fairly symmetric. You cannot tell the modes on on a box plot. The way you know if it's skewed to the right or skewed to the left is you can see there's an outlier here on this box plot, so this one's going to be skewed to the right, is wherever the tail is. And then finally, make sure you use context. Context is just what you're talking about, and since we were talking about how tall people were, so it would be heights in your 4th period AP Stats class. And you're going to want to use comparative language, because if I'm talking about I am taller than you, I'm going to use the word taller. I am heavier. I have a better grade or worse grade or whatever. You're going to make sure you use comparative language when you're comparing. Also, make sure you use specific data. That's what the BS stands for, meaning you can't just say I am taller than you. You would say I am 64 inches, which is taller than you, where you are 62 inches. So you need to make sure you're specific. Okay, the check for understanding today looks at parallel box plots. These are parallel box plots because you can see they're just stacked on the same line and parallel to each other so that you can compare them. And it just asks you to compare the distributions, and you can read along and see that these are compared. The distributions are roughly symmetric. Both of them are roughly symmetric because look at the tails. The tails are pretty good. The median's about in the middle. You can definitely see the Michigan State University is a little bit skewed to the right because the median is at 25, and if it was more centered, it would be more at 30, but it's pretty good. It's pretty close. And remember, data, everybody gets different data. If I go out and ask 100 people versus you go out and ask 100 people, if your friend goes out 100 people, what your favorite team is, it's going to get something similar, but not exact. So we're pretty good with calling this fairly symmetric. The Michigan State one, I am going to call it slightly skewed to the right because, as I said, you can have it. If you called it fairly symmetric, it'd be okay, but it's better if you call it slightly skewed to the right. But the University of Michigan one, you can see, is a little bit skewed to the right, but it's pretty symmetric. It's pretty good. So the centers are both exactly the same at 25 points, so notice that I'm giving exact data. And then you're going to talk about that you have more variability with Michigan State because you can see, and then you're going to go ahead and give it to me. You're going to say that you don't have it exact. It looks like it's about 52 and about maybe 6. So you have 52 minus 6, and you can tell me what about that is. And the IQR is going to be, looks like about 40 minus 18. So you can give me about that. Looks like about 22 is the IQR, where University of Michigan looks about 9 points. Notice we're using the word about. We don't have exact, and we're going to have ambiguity, so we're going to use about. And neither one of them have outliers. All right, thanks for listening. I hope you are learning more and more, and I'll see you next time.